Well, it's time for more wrenching. The small excavator just died on me. I'm gonna say it again. I've said it before. If anyone sees any of my videos, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to comment. I will try to answer. Well, I was working with it and it just stopped on me. All functions except the dozer blade just died, and figured it was something electrical having to do with some safety, allowing the hydraulics to function. And there is a switch in the armrest that you kind of fold up to get in and out, and it kills all the function. And I think I remember that I've noticed that the dozer blade still works for some reason, even if you think that would have been on there. But it's an old machine, and maybe a modern one would kill all functions once you lift the armrest. And there is a switch down below here. I'm trying to access. You can see the wiring down here. I tried messing around with trying to have the tester on the pins once I had been able to free the wiring for it, and then activating the switch itself. And at first it seemed like it would have been the switch causing issues, but when I had a set of extra hand and could actually activate the switch properly, the switch seems fine. Started opening up the plate covering the hydraulic package under the floor where you have your feet, but also made a peek down here and find two magnetic valves on the pump, and one look burnt. Tried measuring if one was burnt. I later figured out that it isn't completely burnt out, it just has a lot less resistance than it should have, and it's kind of been working. And I think that might have damaged some wiring, but that will be a future problem because it's up and running with some emergency repairs. Tried getting in there with some extension. The nut on the top holding the magnetic part on should not be on there hard, but this was gonna be issues because it started loosening the entire valve. Time to get the battery and the battery tray out to get some more access. The electrical main switch is also bolted to the battery tray, and in the back of it there are some quite annoying kind of hooks, kind of bendable hooks. It's some cable management, and you need to undo the hose for the air intake also, because that's connected to the battery tray. Camera was out of battery for a little while, but we managed then to get the top section of the magnetic valve out. I'll get more details back in the garage, so the magnet could come off the broken one, but we decided to bring both of the valves back to the garage. Had the nuts come off easily, the initial plan was to transfer this one that controls the high-low speed over to the activating hydraulic side, and the machine could probably have been used just pressing down the high speed button to activate all the functions and not having the high speed track option. But since it refused to come undone, this is what happened. And part of why it was hard to get things undone might have been that the sections here are imperial. Most of the stuff on the machine is metric, but this top section that should not come undone, the valve is like a unit, and that magnetic part should be possible to replace without undoing this. But this top section, well, at first the entire valve came out. I should have taken it out like a unit, brought the magnet and everything to the garage, but I tried doing a shortcut holding the valve down, but then that top section came undone by the machine. And I need a new rotary tool. This one does not sound happy anymore, and RPMs are going up and down. Did some attempt to remove the coil on the second valve that refused to go, but I still broke it apart, the top section and the bottom, just to clean everything, because it had been apart by the machine when we tried undoing to kind of move it, shift it over to the other one, and realized there is a little metal thing. You can see it here. This pin is probably kind of repelled or attracted by the coil and pushes the valve. That one is not very magnetic, the original one. It's kind of hexagonal in shape, and we figured we would search for the missing one by the machine, but we also cut a little section off the closest hex key we had in the garage as a makeshift emergency to try if we couldn't find it. Luckily we did. A lot of coils use Hirschman contacts. The Yanmar does not, but rather than try and replace the contact, because the new coil came with just bare wires, I'm just gonna cut and splice. And I don't think it matters where you go with positive or negative on a coil, but someone else might confirm that. I'm not entirely sure, I might have gotten lucky, but there are no real markings with plus or minus, so I doubt it matters. We had prepared as much as we could, but I left one valve not put back together because we were going to search for that pin, and we found it laying right on top of the hydraulic pump, so that was lucky because it's hardly magnetic at all. I don't think it might have been picked up if it had fallen deeper down and kind of been stuck to some grease or something further down the machine. Way less magnetic than a tool piece that piece we made from a tool, so what it's made of I have no clue, but we find the correct one, so hopefully this won't be an issue. Some thread sealant and the valve could go back together. High-low tracking valve, a little tricky to get on there since it has to go on there with the magnet, since that refused to come undone. The threads on the other one that I did get the nut off was quite damaged. I ended up having to use the rotary tool to remove some threads because they were kind of messed up, but it shouldn't matter. The nut just needs to hold the magnet down, there is no real force acting on it. Second valve went down there a lot easier since there was no magnet in the way to mess with. Lots of coils just have a cap that you thread on by hand, and it should probably be fine threading the nut down by hand, but here the thread is kind of messed up and needed a little force to go just a little bit extra down to kind of keep it snug. Machine was fired up and absolutely nothing still worked. So back to double checking that switch. I had checked all the fuses in the machine, starting to wonder if there was a extra fuse somewhere I had missed, but nothing is working. Well, except the dozer blade. Everything is like it was before we started. I once again ran out of power in the camera, but I was back there measuring the electrical connector feeding the two magnetic valves, and my dad was, we had the machine running, my dad was pressing that high-low activator for the tracks, and on that connection I kind of got 9 to 14 volts. It was up and down here and there. It's not looking good. And on the connector for the actually safety magnetic valve, I didn't get any voltage, so we have something wrong with that's electrical after all. Well, the coil was broken also because it's only registered at like 1 ohms of resistance, and the brand new one had almost 4, so it was pulling a lot more power than it needed, so it needed to be replaced, and it might have damaged the wiring here. At least the machine starts easier now because I have it started. I'll get to that. So back to the drawing board. We're gonna do a bypass and kill this safety function for now. Had some connectors laying around that are kind of close to the original parts on the machine, but they will not just fit, so I cut away kind of the safety part so that the pins in this one will be exposed. With that I took a fuse holder, a switch and some ring connectors, and then pressed on the pins. It will be a makeshift solution to feed that coil to operate the machine directly from the battery for now, and finish up the work that needs to be done. It's almost time to park this for the winter. You can see the pins will stick out a little and should be possible to kind of jam into the original connector, and then maybe a zip tie and some electrical tape to hold it in place for now. A little tricky to get back in there, kind of on the side of the battery, and secure this makeshift connection in place and getting some tape around it. And here is the safety switch now, and it's backwards. Off is go and run is off, but it doesn't matter. It functions and the machine is up and running. I'm happy. Have a great day, everyone.